Hello, lovely people. Welcome to Ari Talks About Music. I'm Ari, and today I'll be reviewing this new Billy Woods album, which is the eighth solo album from the American rapper, who over the last few years has been building up quite the impressive discography, being definitely one of the most consistent and yet still one of the most experimental artists in the world of abstract hip-hop in the last few years, having released not only many incredible solo albums, but also a really great selection of collab albums too. And now his newest project is only further contributing to proving the point of how much of a force to be reckoned with Billy Woods truly is, with this album easily being one of his most out there and yet still among his best. I think that this album is off to just a little bit of a rough start with the opening track of Jump Scare, which despite having so much going on for the song definitely does still manage to feel just a little bit bare for some reason, but still just does a pretty good job at being the opening track and kind of setting the tone for how disturbing and uncomfortable a lot of this album is going to be, which the following track, Star 87, already starts to demonstrate quite a lot, with this very unsettling droning sound in the background that only continues to get louder as the song goes on, as well as also a very ominous phone ringing sound effect, which is then only further made even more disturbing by a lot of the spoken word samples as well, many of which do call back to the phone ringing, and really just gives this track this immense sense of urgency. And of course, Billy's rapping on this track is absolutely top notch, and just the absolute passion in the delivery of certain lines is truly incredible. Misery does start to tone it down just a little bit, thankfully, and more than anything, I think it's just a fantastic hip-hop track that shows off some great production, really unique percussion, and of course incredible rapping. And I do like these various little moments that the album has that aren't strictly interludes, but definitely just give you a break from just the unsettling nature of everything else that's going on around it. Black Xmas is actually deceptively frantic, with there being so much to the rapping in the beginning, from the harsh social commentary to as well the incredibly suspenseful piano, which I think does a great job at just keeping you on the edge for the whole song. The crying sound effects, as well as the generally much more laid-back sound on Waterproof Mascara, give it this absolutely beautiful but still really haunting and somewhat disturbing atmosphere. And a lot of the dark lyrics as well are very hard-hitting, with a lot of the metaphors that Billy Woods uses as storytelling. Corinthians, despite its absolutely incredible production, still manages to sound so dark and gritty. The build-up as well is just so ominous and unsettling, and even the latter half of the track still manages to keep that momentum going, as pretty much every aspect of the track just continues to hit harder and harder as it goes. The intro on All These Worlds Are Yours does drag on maybe a little bit more than it should. However, I think just the pure power and aggression of the rapping later on in the track absolutely makes up for it, with the delivery of just about every line being incredibly passionate, and the much heavier percussion as well just really adds to the atmosphere. Maquiladoras is one of the album's much more experimental moments, and even in a way does actually remind me quite a lot of the new Clipping album, which I also really loved. I think that the social commentary on this track is absolutely fantastic, and even despite its simplicity, I just love everything about how it sounds. A Doll Full of Pins has this absolutely amazing jazz rap kind of feel to it, with a lot of the brass instruments I think being an absolutely fantastic addition. Again, this is one of the much more laid-back moments, which I think this album uses very well, but still quite sparingly. But I think that it's still just about dynamic enough that it still really does get you hyped up. Golgotha still slightly keeps the jazz rap sound going, although on this track it is much more watered down, with the focus on this track being much more on the rapping than it is on the instrumental. And in terms of the rapping, I think it's absolutely some of the strongest on the whole album, and I do still really like just the very subtle instrumental that just still provides this incredible atmosphere that just complements the very hard-hitting lyrics really well. Cold Sweat has such beautiful and smooth production, and genuinely some of the most amazing piano work on the album too. I think compared to many of the other tracks, especially its neighbouring songs, it is just a bit repetitive. However, for how short it is, it's easily forgivable, and still overall does provide the album with some of its most unique moments. Some of the arrangements, as well as the classic-sounding East Coast production on Black Zombie, give this track such an amazing and suspenseful feel, which once again are also incredibly unsettling, which I think is good to go back to after a run of slightly more comfortable tracks, if you will. Born Alone has this really beautiful and still somewhat dissonant piano, which I think sounds absolutely amazing even as the leading instrument. And even in some moments, the rapping does have an almost slightly sarcastic tone, but still manages to sound so serious and hard-hitting when it needs to. And then the final two tracks, Lead Paint Test and Dislocated, talk about ending the album on a high, with these two being genuinely some of the most beautiful and quite possibly my two favourite songs on the whole album. Lead Paint Test consistently has absolutely incredible production, and the revolving door of features also really helps to keep it so dynamic. This song is also just beautifully atmospheric, which just sounds amazing after such an intense album, which is a feeling that then the closing track Dislocated only further builds on. With this track in general really just building on a lot of the groundworks that Lead Paint Test put down. And on the whole, I think that it just does a fantastic job at ending the album in a really beautiful and calm way that has this real sense of closure and finality. I think that the decision to make this album 18 tracks was definitely a bold choice, because in an album with that much content, it's definitely difficult to have every track stand out, with there just being a handful of filler tracks that I don't think are quite as interesting or even as atmospheric as many of the others. Most notably, Counterclockwise and Make No Mistake, I think are some moments that really just provide a lot less, with many of the much more simple and even more interlude tracks still providing just a nice atmosphere if nothing else. One thing that I think is consistently one of my favourite things about this album, which is the case for pretty much every abstract hip-hop album, is just a lot of the really tiny details. It's such a dense project that every time I listen to it, I notice at least one new thing that I find interesting. And so I feel like I'd be here all day talking about every single tiny detail and moment that I love about this album, but definitely one of the standouts for me is a moment in the track Star 87, where just as Billy Woods delivers the phrase charged up, there is like a Super Mario mushroom sound effect in the background. And I really do love it when songs do things like that, where the sound effects somehow call back to the lyrics. And even as well, just a lot of the samples that are used in the intros of a lot of the tracks, I think really just somehow manage to add so much, with a lot of them really being consistent with the atmosphere of each song that they're a part of. And so with all of that, I think that this is by far one of Billy Woods' strongest projects, just consistently being so interesting and so unique, with every single track having absolutely fantastic production and the rapping also just being absolutely top notch. And so overall, I'm going to give this album an 8 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching this review. Please be sure to listen to this album yourself and tell me your thoughts below. Please leave a like if you liked the video, and please leave a dislike if you didn't like the video, and remember to stay hydrated.